Hello, my name is Sergio Ardila, and I am the top workers' comp attorney here in Morgan, Atlanta. And today I'm going to be explaining the valuation of your workers' comp claim, how the insurance company and your attorney finds out the value of your claim, and how you can do so as well and understand how it is that all parties got to it. Now, this video does not create a attorney-client relationship. This is just for informational purposes. This is all information that you can find out on your own if you want to research the law, but I'm just providing a concise video that goes through all the basics. Obviously, if you do want some legal advice, reach out to an attorney, and if I'm already representing you, then just call my office and we can talk further about this. All right, now, your workers' comp claim in Georgia gets value from 3 different sources. And I'm going to draw this here as 3 different buckets, just for the purposes of this explanation. Now, your claim gets value because the insurance company has to provide some financial compensation for each one of these 3 sources. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're providing this compensation to you. Sometimes they provide it to a third party, but it still gives you claim value because they're providing it on your behalf. Now, the first source of compensation, the first one of these buckets, is medical treatment. And that is pretty straightforward. You get in an accident at work, the insurance company then has to send you to the doctor. The doctor provides some treatment, makes some recommendation, maybe gives you some medicine, and the insurance company then has to pay for the doctor's bill for providing that treatment. Now, in this case, this compensation is not going to you, but they're still spending money on your behalf, taking money out of their bank account and providing it to the doctor. So medical treatment gives your claim value for that reason. The second one is indemnity benefits, and we're going to put TTD here. That stands for temporary total disability. Now, this one is a little bit more nuanced because there are different conditions that get you to get TTD, temporary total disability. And those conditions include if the authorized treating physician for workers' comp says that you cannot work at all, takes you completely out of work, the insurance company has to give you compensation for that time that you're unable to work because of your workers' comp injury. If the workers' comp doctor says that you can work, but not a regular duty job, but a light duty job with some restrictions, the insurance company and the employer then have the chance to provide you a light duty job under those restrictions. If they're unable to do so, then they again have to pay you weekly checks during that time. Now, this source of value here is compensation that goes directly to you via your weekly check. And the way you find out how much value that gives to your claim, how much value it gives it to you, is by getting an average of how much money you were making before your injury. We get 13 weeks before your date of injury. We get the average of that, and workers' comp has to pay you 2/3 of that with a cap depending on the year. The current cap is $675 weekly. So not everybody does make the cap, so let's just say $500 weekly is how much you will be getting in workers' comp weekly for this source of value. And as you will see as we move forward in this video, the valuation behind a workers' compensation claim is very formulaic, and you can just tally up to kind of figure out the range of value. Now, the last one of the sources is called PPD, and is a permanent partial disability. What that stands for is workers' comp gives you compensation if your injury is so severe that it has left a permanent change in your body, a permanent disability. Now, obviously, as your attorney, he or she would argue that you have a huge permanent disability, but typically the insurance company takes the word of the authorized treating physician, and the way they give you a rating is by giving you a percentage. So let's say you have such a severe injury that even after all the treatment, you're never going to be 100%. The doctor says the best you will be after this injury is 90%. So that means that he gives you a 10% disability rating. So that will go under this third category here, PPD. And this one, your PPD, this hypothetical that we're talking about, gives you a 10%. Now, the law has a statute that really breaks it down nicely for the attorneys to figure out how to turn this into dollars and financial compensation for you. let's say in this hypothetical, the doctor says you have a 10% disability to your entire body. The workers' comp law here in Georgia values your entire body for purposes of this only as 300 weeks. The reason why they measure it in weeks is because how much they pay you weekly really dictates the value of your claim. In this hypothetical, they're giving you $500 weekly. So if the doctor gave you a 10% permanent partial disability and the whole body is seen as 300 weeks, that means that 10% equals 30 weeks. And if we already said that you're getting paid $500 a week, you would just multiply 30 weeks times 500. So in this particular case, 30 weeks times 500, we're looking at $15,000 worth of value to your claim in this category here. So you're already seeing that this is pretty formulaic already, and then I'll show you how these other two are formulaic as well. So in this hypothetical, this category, if the doctor gave you a 10% disability rating, it's not being disputed. The insurance company would have to pay you $15,000 for this category, and you can see why that gives your claim $15,000 of value. All right, now these other two, and this is it, all right? And one more thing, you might have heard of something called pain and suffering. You usually hear that, when you're watching TV, you hear this multi-million-dollar verdicts, and you hear this thing called pain and suffering. This will be a whole different bucket, a fourth bucket. And you can get that if you get in a car accident, or if you get in an accident where you're suing under a different set of laws. Unfortunately, in workers' comp, the law does not compensate you for pain and suffering. So, unfortunately, we do not take this into consideration when evaluating your workers' comp claim. There's no compensation in this bucket. It's very unfortunate because many work injuries lead to a lot of pain and suffering, whether it's physical or emotional. We definitely understand that you're dealing with a lot just by having this claim and having this injury, but the law in Georgia currently just does not provide any type of compensation for this. So we're really only looking at these three things. Now the next thing we look at is how to figure out the value of your claim today when you're settling your claim, even though you might continue to get especially these two categories in the future. Now, right now we are in 2020, and in 2020 for a Georgia workers' comp claim, you have 400 weeks from your date of injury for you to get medical benefits. From your date of injury and 400 weeks in the future, you are entitled to medical benefits. That doesn't mean that you're going to get medical benefits for 400 weeks. The doctor might release you 6 months after your date of injury, say there's nothing wrong with you. You might make a full recovery. This is something we don't know in the future. But if you have such a severe injury that you need to continue getting weekly or medical treatment, you can do so up to 400 weeks. If on 401 week, you still need medical treatment because you still have some pain, you still have some issues, the law doesn't really provide you any more medical benefits unless you meet this other category that I'll discuss in another video. That's typically very hard to meet, and it's reserved only for the most serious of injuries. There's another cap, which is the 350 week cap for your weekly checks. If you are either unable to work because the doctor put you on restrictions, the insurance company can't provide those, then the insurance company has to pay you checks for up to 350 weeks. If the doctor says that you cannot work at all, you can actually go up to the 400 week mark for the checks as well. But typically, during all this time, which comes out to about 6.5 years, the doctor will say that you have some restrictions, even if, let's say, you can't lift more than 5 pounds, and then you're usually talking about this 350 week cap. If on 351 weeks, you still can't lift anything above whatever the doctor says, say it's 30 pounds, the insurance company doesn't have to pay you any more checks, all right? We stop looking after this cap, and this is just what the law provides, these time limits. Let's say your date of injury is here, and if this is 7 years, let's say this is about 1.5 years, this X right here marks a spot where we're trying to see if we can settle your claim, or you would like to settle your claim. So it is the job of your attorney and the job of the insurance company's attorney to figure out how much money they might spend on your claim moving forward if they don't settle the claim. this is where the evaluation comes forward. And to figure out how much money they might spend on your claim if you don't settle your claim, if you don't resolve it from this time until this cap, they look at these three things. Obviously, if you've already received medical treatment in this time here, you know how much that costs. If you've already been getting checks during this time here, they know how much that costs. You know how much that costed already. And if you already received a permanent partial disability, then you do the equation here and you figure out how much that cost. But a settlement to figure out the valuation of your claim comes from how much money are they going to spend moving forward. And in this hypothetical that we were using, let's say that a doctor has recommended a surgery for you. And let's say that at this point you haven't had the surgery yet and you're considering whether you want to have the surgery or not. If you want to settle this claim, we know that in the future you're going to have to get a surgery, so we take that into account for the medical treatment. Let's say the specific surgery cost $15,000. And let's say that we also ascertain that the future care after the surgery, including of medicine, physical therapy, is going to cost $5,000 over the next year. So we know that future medical from that day until you're good to go back to work is going to cost $20,000. Let's say that it's going to take 6 months to a year for you to make a full recovery. So we just do $500 per week from 6 months to a year, and we figure out what that number is. And I believe 500, I think it's 28,000 and some change over the span of a year, if I remember correctly. But let's just say it's 28,000, just doing it off the top of my head, for a year's worth of benefits. And we already know that 10% equals 15,000, so we just add this up. 20 plus 28 is 48, plus 15, that is 48, that is $63,000. So we know that the insurance company is likely to spend $63,000 from this date forward, based on what we do know at the time, which is what you're going to need medically, how long we expect you to be out of work, or how long we expect them to pay weekly checks, and what your permanent disability will be. Your attorney will do this evaluation, the insurance company will do this evaluation, and then the insurance company will come up with a range with the amount of money that they will be willing to pay today to resolve your claim. They're not going to pay you the $63,000 in most situations, because they already know that they might have to end up paying that throughout all this time. And if we're here at a year and a half, you might still have 5.5 years to, or 5 years to about 6 years left. If they know they're going to have to pay this money during that time, they're not going to offer that. They would prefer to just wait it out and see if they do end up paying that. See if you do end up having to get the surgery. See if you do end up wanting the surgery. See if it does take you 6 months to a year to get better, or if you're actually improving 2-3 months. And see if the doctor does end up giving you the 10% disability. So they usually come to a range between 60, let's say between 55 to 70% of this, usually. And obviously the facts of each individual case will change that valuation. But they will make you an offer in between this. And it is for you to decide if you would prefer to get this money up front and from a settlement offer, or if you prefer to wait it out. Because maybe, you know what, you think you might need more than just one surgery and a year's worth of rehab. You might need 2 surgeries. You might need something else. You think you might be out of work for longer than 6 months to a year. You think it might be 2 years. And you think the doctor might give you more than 10%. And this is where the negotiation takes place. Different attorneys can look at these 3 sources differently and make different arguments. But we're all looking at these 3 things, and this is also what you should be looking at. I'm going to make a different video talking about exactly what each party considers when it comes to settling or not. But this is the basic framework of how both the insurance company's attorney, and your attorney looks at the value behind your workers' comp claim. And I hope that this gave you a better understanding for you to make that determination yourself as well.